Dawn of War Ultimate Apocalypse Mod Spotlight by MandaloreGaming.
I've seen a saying pop up for Dawn of War over the years. Buy Dark Crusade for the campaign, buy Soulstorm for Ultimate Apocalypse. If you're not familiar with Dawn of War, it's an RTS set in the Warhammer 40,000 universe. I briefly touched on that lore in the Fire Warrior video, but if you want a comprehensive overview of Dawn of War 1 and the expansions, check out the Thunderpsyker videos. They're really good. For a mod like this, I have to assume you're familiar with the base game, because this is essentially Super Dawn of War. This is the result of nearly 15 years of modding. The credits list dozens of contributors. There are probably even more people that contributed to the mod in some way, even if they didn't know it. It's a big mod. You'll need to take some steps to install it just right. The version on ModDB includes an installer. This includes all the game files you need except for the Tyranids mod, which you have to go download separately. This will work fine, but the mod has an update that's not on ModDB and is on MediaFire. This doesn't have an installer. You go in the directory and manually overwrite the files. If you don't have it already, the mod page includes a large address awareness patch. This will let the game use more than 2 gigs of RAM. You're going to be needing that.
I know that, I think Bethesda games have that too. Don't you have to override that? So when you mod like Fallout 4, New Vegas, Skyrim, right? Isn't that one of the mods that you have to put in? You have to actually make sure the game will take more than 2 gigabytes of RAM, especially when some of the mods get really wild, right? It's kind of interesting just how that 2 gigabyte thing, that the limit just keeps popping up in games. Really fascinating. Oh, look at the boys. Is that Eldar? The Eldar that I see? The reason I wanted to actually react to this was I heard that, so I got a couple games, right? I got Dawn of War 3. Made my funny purple Kip Eldar, which they're honestly kind of cool. I like the size of the Wraith Lords. They're super cool. I didn't know they were like that massive. But outside of that, 3, I understand why people were saying it's kind of League of Legends-esque, which is rather unfortunate because like the game was set up for an absolute just like expansion after expansion after expansion, kind of like Total War. And I guess the big criticism is just like, well, go play Dawn of War 1 because you can mod Dawn of War 1 to be able to have your Eldari, to have your Tyranids, etc. So it's kind of interesting. It's kind of interesting to see how games like Dawn of War 3 were kind of just dead on arrival. And I definitely see like the League of Legends criticism, why people would say that. Definitely a little hero focused. But it's kind of sad to see just potential never realized. But then again, we do have games to go back like Dawn of War 1, where there's just a very thriving modding community, and arguably what people consider is just kind of the definitive way to play. It's fascinating to me.
You're going to want the Salcol fan patch. It's basically a mod for a mod. You especially want this for multiplayer since most players are using it. The changelog for this patch is nearly 60 pages.
Nice.
This doesn't even include a lot of the bug fixes. After talking to Salcol himself about some of the stuff he fixed, I would mark this as being essential. I'll post a handy guide of links in the pinned comment, and if anything changes, I'll update it. Using the mod manager is also a good idea for catching anything you missed. Even if you're completely new to modding, it's not too bad. So what's the background? Well, in Tabletop 40k, there is a game mode called Apocalypse. It's for people who spent their college tuition fund on Warhammer figures.
Yeah.
They looked at the 3 Baneblades their tuition earned them, and then went out and bought even more. It's less about balance, more about spectacle. The mod certainly carries on that spirit.
I mean, that's why I would play it, right? I mean, I'm going to show up with, was that Eldar that was showcased? I don't know what the back 3 units were, the teal one and the 2 yellow. I don't think they're Wraith Knights. But no, I would absolutely play Apocalypse. I would show up with, the 3 Wraith Knights. I would show up with just, oh man, I would love it. I'd easily play 5k. I think I have 3k so far from just what I have bought. I mean, I mentioned I love Eldar. Necrons also look kind of cool. They're funny little Wraith dudes. The Canoptic Wraiths, they're kind of cool. I kind of like them. The little mechanical facehugger dudes that phase in and out of reality. Dude, the setting is just so fun.
I asked the creator Sylarn about it. Its origins were more humble than I expected.
Basically, the thought of my Predator tanks being limited to like 2 or something, and me wanting to have more Predators and stuff, more Terminators, basically more Pariahs, especially Pariahs because I played the Necrons, and I developed like an idea to create an Apocalypse monolith, and then after that, it just became the Apocalypse mod.
So it started as a guy wanting more tanks, ended up with giant robots and nuclear warfare.
Nice.
Modding is a hell of a drug. Covering all the additions made would be near impossible. I'll still cover the major features point by point. Let's start with what's immediately visible. As you probably guessed from earlier, the Tyranids are in the game now. They're the first of 3 new factions. The second being the Inquisition Demon Hunters, and the third being the Chaos Demons. I remember playing the standalone Tyranid and Demon Hunter mod years ago, so it was cool to see them back. The standalone mods are great in their own right, and Ultimate Apocalypse gives them some more stuff to play with. The same goes for all the base factions. Everyone has a gigantic pile of new stuff. Each faction has about a dozen new units minimum, but some have several times that. Some of the units in the new factions actually look better than the stuff in base Soulstorm. Some of the existing units got new textures, models, or variations. Some are units from mods like Firestorm over Cronus, and some are brand new. The painter for your armies has been beefed up with a lot more options. There's also new stuff to choose from on the technical side. In vanilla you couldn't zoom out especially far, but now you can see just about everything on the map. The camera was serviceable in the base game, but you're controlling a lot more units here, and bigger ones. The scales of the fights have grown so massively that using the default game camera would probably drive you crazy. A few of the new units might actually fill out the screen in the vanilla game. Others are so massive that I'm not sure you would be able to see them at all. Maybe just their legs? To accommodate the new scale of war, there are plenty of new user-made maps. Some of the existing maps have also had tweaks for the mod. Then there are the dozens of new game options. There's enough here to accommodate just about any playstyle I can think of. Do you want more super weapons and giant units? Easy. Maybe you don't want those things, you just want to play with the regular new units so it's more like vanilla. No problem. Ultimate Apocalypse is all about having options. Let's get into that.
I do like options. I think in anything, in gameplay, in mods, having options is never a bad thing, right? It allows that modularity. You might just want to play Tyranids, but you want to play vanilla. You have that option. You might want to play Oops All Wraith Tech, right? Like I would probably try to do, right? Sure, that's an option for you. You might say, nah, no filthy Xenos in my game. We're gonna have, I don't know, Imperial Fist versus Dark Angels, right? And you're just fighting Space Marine v Space Marine. That is also a valid thing, right? I mean, I've been saying for literal years that just giving the player the option to do things is such a beneficial thing. Absolutely. Especially in modernity. There's games that play like an amusement park ride. Like, go play through, and I don't mean this necessarily in a bad way, right? Go play through like Resident Evil 3 Remake, right? I actually really enjoyed it. But especially how kind of short the game is, how you go through the set pieces standard Resident Evil style. It kind of felt like I was kind of being guided through an amusement park. That was also influenced by the game after a couple deaths to Nemesis, being like, well, do you want to get shifted down to assisted? And then accidentally clicked yes, and therefore I was unassisted from that point out. Like, let me fail. I will stay for the experience. I promise. A single boss is not going to make me quit the game. Okay? Played Dark Souls. If anything, I'll just take a break for a little while, and I will return to it, okay? Or, in the case of Twin Demon Princes from the Ring City, I will just summon. So it's kind of interesting to see that not only the base game, but the mods are aiding and abetting for a lot of that modularity and player freedom. Maybe there's one or two niche things where I might say that that's a bad thing, but I mean, we're talking a hypothetical, very, very niche interaction. Generally, this level of modularity and giving the power to the player is kind of meta, kind of good.
More. Say you want to play a game as the Imperial Guard, or Astra Militarum, whatever they are now. Instead of having guardsmen, now you have conscripts. They're weaker, but cheaper, and have more numbers, and boy do they reinforce quickly. You can use these guys with the guardsmen to help tar pit the enemy. They are near useless in combat, but they'll hold the enemy still. Or
are those Van Ryan's Leapers?
The
or whatever they're
rescue
called?
Team. If you want to focus on artillery, you can specialize in it. You can choose a permanent doctrine for your army. You could focus on artillery in one game, in another, air support. Several races have similar sub-faction options. Space Marines could be a generic chapter, or a Legion of the Damned. That locks off a few units, but makes no unique ones like the Death Guard available. You could choose a clan as Orcs, or a god to follow as Chaos Demons. Having sub-factions like this helps mix up your playstyle even more when playing the same faction. In the case of the Imperial Guard, you can pump out a lot more artillery for cheap. Besides helping mobile artillery, it would also strengthen turrets and artillery buildings. Yeah, the Guard can build artillery buildings now, or when you really need people to go away.
That's so many talk, what?
If you have a lot of money, you can build a Basilisk Magnus that can hit about anywhere on the map. If you have even more money, trick it out with Apocalypse rounds.
What? I love that. Wow.
I think we got him. Alternatively, you can invest in a Deathstrike nuclear missile launcher, but that has to get in range before it can fire, so you could build a nuclear center and pay a lot to hit anywhere. What upsets me most about the nuclear option is I can still see some Tyranids moving around in there, so you could pay less for an orbital laser, or build a Titan factory and start churning out Titans. You don't have one endgame option, you have several. This isn't exclusive to the Guard. Every faction has their own super weapons and super units. Just about every faction has options for striking across the map. It definitely seems more balanced for the larger maps. On the smaller maps, you can be hit by a lot more if your enemy is close by. It's like playing Warhammer Supreme Commander, but you have a lot less countermeasures than that game.
I mean, honestly, I think that just comes down to player v player, right? I'm sure that there's going to be some sort of degenerate game state eventually, right? Where this is the meta that you run, especially on smaller maps. But I mean, everything develops. A meta develops in everything. A metagame is strictly, there is just a better option or better options to achieve the end goal. What is the meta in Yu-Gi-Oh? Anything that's able to reduce your opponent's life points to 0 fastest, or depending on the format, something, deck your opponent outright. In League of Legends, right? What is the end goal of the game? To beat your opponent's champions, defeat wow, I cannot speak. Destroy. I was like burn, eviscerate, like every word but destroy. Destroy their funny little rift, right? Grats. Can any character, any champion do that better than others? Yeah. Okay, grats. That's a metagame. A metagame will always develop. But that being said, you can also, not necessarily household, but gentlemen's agreements of stuff, right? If I was going to play Warhammer 40k tabletop, right? And I'm going to bring my Hemlock into a 500-point game, or I'm going to bring my Wraith Knight to a 1,000-point game. Isn't the Wraith Knight like half your army at like 495 approximate points? Yeah. You're going to bring a single unit that is half of your army. Yes. Kip, are you just a shitter? Yes. But that being said, if someone just wants an honest game, yeah, I'll just bring funny little Wraith tech, right? I'll bring a couple Wraith Lords, bring some Wraith Guard. We're going to have a good time. We're going to have a fun time, right? So even limiting yourself, you have all these options, but if you're like, well, we're not going full nuclear war status, right? Sure, absolutely, you can play that game. It just comes down to who you're playing with and in what context. If you're on, well, not necessarily ladder, right? But if you're connecting to randoms, right? Generally, you're wanting to play the best game that you can. But if you're playing with friends, yeah, maybe oops, all tank, forego the nuclear option, right? But you have that freedom because of that modularity. Your whole army is not based around, hi, my name is Deathcore Krieg. I, as Deathcore Krieg, wish to summon the Baneblade. The Baneblade will come out, and the Baneblade will solve my issues, right? You're not necessarily stuck into that, because I'm sure you not only have the Baneblade, but you have the funny big gun, the Basilisk, right, that we mentioned earlier, right? Like, you have options. Because in a lot of games, you run into this thing where, well, this faction, this army, this group, unit, whatever, they're good, but only when they have this or these specific upgrades. That level of detail, the level of sheer unit variety, can help to address that. Once again, sure, there's a metagame. I'm sure someone can be like, well, actually, if you just play Astra Militarum and you go with the Basilisk cannon, this is actually the meta strat. Sure, absolutely, when we talk about metagames. But from a casual play standpoint, I think it's interesting because that modularity allows for a near infinite amount of freedom in how you approach the game.
Not everybody has the luxury of building a shield generator, or that thing, or whatever this pyramid launches, which is kind of disappointingly small. Well, never mind. Don't underestimate the super weapons. Okay, I think this will get them off the doorstep.
Nice! Classic.
Oh, that's a big shockwave. Oh. That's a big shockwave.
Oh, it's chunky.
Too close.
Those generators are decaying anyways. It's really the variety that impresses me most of all. They didn't give everybody a nuke, but instead a unique way to give your enemy the galactic finger. It could be a huge bombardment, a way to recruit units for free, or a gigantic, nearly unbeatable unit.
Okay.
Endgame units and technologies are expensive, but the game-ending ones are about triply so. The engine can barely comprehend them. Okay, how big is it gonna be? I'm kind of afraid.
Oh.
Is it big, Mandalore?
I kind of love everything about that. Just summon the Titan.
It's stupid.
What? Are you stupid? Oh my!
You know, I don't think the map was meant for something like this.
No.
Does this thing have a range? I don't think it has a range.
This is Big Dick 1. We're crossing the Rubicon. How do we fit on the bridge?
The Titans and super weapons are definitely the most prominent feature, but there's a lot in between that. A lot of the new units are variations right from the tabletop game. In the base game, The Imperial Guard had one variant of Rust Tank. Now they have nearly a dozen. They had one pattern of Baneblade. Now they have several types. This was their most powerful unit in Dawn of War. Things have escalated so much that a faction's most powerful unit has become a variant, complete with having upgrades from buildings. Even Chaos has one in their lineup. And they still have their scary big new vehicles.
Big
Everything
Scorpion.
that a faction had as a strength has been amplified. Your faction's most powerful hero typically has a much stronger one now. Every hero can be upgraded, and new war gear can be unlocked. Getting new war gear improves stats and even changes their physical appearance. Some of these items were locked in campaign, but now they're in skirmish. There's something like 500 different war gear items in total now. It's a complete rabbit hole. But it's a fun rabbit hole, and you want to see what else is in there. What really surprises me is despite all the new units, powers, and abilities, the AI is pretty okay at using all of them. That's a lot of units you need to manage.
The variety of units was another thing. Like, before Thudmeister came along and did the AI, basically the Space Marines, for example, only built like the Land Raider Phobos or something. And now they can build all 5. So Layman Russ is especially for IG. IG can build all tanks now as the AI, so that's pretty good.
That's the one downside when it comes to the Celcal add-on. The AI can't use everything in it just yet. However, I think all the fixes and features far outweigh that factor. So what are...
I mean, yeah, AI packages and stuff like that. I mean, I don't know what entirely goes into modding. I know there's people that modify AI packages for Skyrim, for instance. I feel like that's going to be an interesting one to modify, because especially because I'm sure they're like writing new lines of code, right? But it has to also build upon the existing code, right? It's not like they've created a new Dawn of War Ultimate Apocalypse game, right? It's that they're running off of Dawn of War 1, or at least one of the DLCs for Dawn of War 1, and they are adding and improving upon it, but they're still kind of constrained to the actual game itself, as I understand it. I also wonder where this falls into play with Games Workshop and how they don't like fan projects, or at least some fan projects. I wonder if this falls under their radar. I wonder if this is... if this affects their business, affects their bottom line, because they did release Dawn of War 2 and Dawn of War 3, and Dawn of War 3, I mean, it had potential playing a single game of it, because for some reason, no one on my Steam's friends list shows up, and we can't join each other's games, and apparently this is a widespread issue with Dawn of War 3 on Steam. I mean, like it had a neat basis, but unfortunately it would never be realized. But looking at this, I feel that I think I can agree when people say that this would be a definitive way to play the game, to play Dawn of War. I think that this is actually fairly interesting, and it makes me wonder if they would ever revisit it. But then again, if they were to release Dawn of War Ultimate, right, as a next thing, like Games Workshop, we released Dawn of War Ultimate, would people not just play Dawn of War with mods? I think that that's also a consideration to be made, and something that I'm pretty sure Games Workshop has considered as a company when they're looking at new projects.
A few flaws with the mod. It sets the bar very high for itself, so things that would be more forgiven in a regular mod can stick out a bit more. Some people think power armor is cool. Others think it's a fursuit for people who want to be robots. I think we can all agree that the Dread Knight is just too far. To be fair, it is from the lore. It's mostly some of the super units that really stick out. A lot of the Titans look incredible and fit right into the rest of the game. Others look very much like placeholders.
Yeah.
There's not a ton of them, but they do stick out. Some of the Titans are just too big even for the maps that were made for them. Not only does it look out of place, the tooltips are blank. It's clearly not done.
Yeah.
I only had the game crash twice, and both was from building a Titan. Voice acting and sound work can range from excellent to not so good.
Imperial forces, submit to your masters and die violently against my wailing sword.
Awesome.
Chaos demons, hear me. Follow me.
If his mic didn't cap out, if his mic didn't peak, I think it could have been a good read.
Alright,
What?
Did anyone hear a T-Rex?
yeah, I heard it as well.
The engine can also struggle sometimes. Dawn of War was made with the same engine they used for Impossible Creatures, and it's being pushed to the limit. Disabling corpses can help, but it can really chug when it gets busy.
Yeah.
Crashes is enough to make anybody not play UA for a while. I know it did me for a while. Another reason is lag. The amount of units that Ultimate Apocalypse has cannot make the engine feel good.
The other big issue is multiplayer. Since there are so many versions floating around and you need the exact same files to play multiplayer with each other.
Right.
The team is working to fix all these problems. It does follow the Dawn of War formula where you need map control for better units, but it'll never be completely balanced. There's just too much.
Yeah.
A dozen factions with hundreds of units being worked on by volunteers isn't going to be hyper-competitive. Weapon upgrades are spilling into different panels. This isn't StarCraft. There are mods like Firestorm that add new units while keeping balance in mind, but most of those people work on this now. It's definitely worth checking out for your favorite faction. After all, it's free. You can play with Titans that don't yell at your wallet and don't make you watch poker ads.
It's
What?
an awesome and fun mod that adds in Titans and nukes. If you love Titans and nukes, there you go, play it.
Big thanks to Sylarn for talking with me about his mod, and to the rest of the team who's still working on the next version. You can get the most up-to-date info on the mod from their Discords or from Sylarn's YouTube channel. While I've been working on this video, I've also been working on the next one for a German role-playing game. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. And an especially big thanks to the backers. Since I'm not dying this time around, I can answer some questions. I burned out that infection good. Alright, question 1.
Nice.
What is the most bizarre title you've played? Nothing I've made a video on. Those are still made by teams and not made by crazy people. I've played games made by people who weren't well, and the games were kind of an outlet for them. I probably won't do a video on most of them because they're kind of exploitive to do that, but others that weren't made by crazy people, maybe one day. Will you review Mount & Blade Bannerlord when it comes out? I'll probably be dead by then, but if not, sure. What was the first multiplayer game you played extensively? There were a lot of multiplayer games I'd play from time to time, but the first one that I think was a daily ritual was Age of Mythology. Most people's experience with the Warcraft 3 custom game scene, that was me in Age of Mythology. Eventually I started to make maps for it, really simple stuff like Cat and Mouse and Archer Arena, but that was a long time ago, so they're probably gone. Are there any games you want to feature but can't for some reason? Metal Wolf Chaos was one, but that's getting a PC version now. They're typically going to be games that are just hard to record and get in a nice format. There are some games I'm pretty sure they put on PS4, so it should be easier to record, but I'm not doing any console stuff yet since I'm still in the moving process. Speaking of which, that move is going to be in August, but I'm not sure on the exact date because the place is still being built. There's still a video or two to come before that gap, so I'll see you then.
I like his QA segment. I think it's really cool.
Looks like everything's in order, sir.
Nice. What a cool end too. I honestly really liked it. I thought it was super cool. I always love watching MandaloreGaming. I think that he has a lot of cool videos. Some of them I really don't know what I can add. Like Cabela's video, I'm not sure what I can add. Sure, I might be able to add something to say War of the Ring. I might be able to add something in, general. Hi, I like 40K. I like Eldar kind of things. But I mean, there's some game like System Shock. I have nothing to really add. I haven't played System Shock. I haven't even played BioShock really extensively in any capacity. So reactions to MandaloreGaming also don't do well, which is perfectly fine. I always encourage people to the original videos, to go watch the original videos, which in the description I have made sure to link the original video as well as Mandalore's original channel, which you should definitely go ahead and check out. So I kind of do these as passion reacts, just because I think Mandalore has some great content. He's very consistent with his content. He brings some really cool things to the table. I like the kind of tech stuff that he does, like his installation, right? His installation chapters that he does in his videos, such as Return of the King. He was talking about how, certain issues that PC experiences and stuff. But honestly, love his content. I think that he has a great ability to do things. I love his videos. It was really cool to kind of see this as somebody who had kind of experimented with Dawn of War 3. And I hear that you just kind of have to download your launcher and download the mods to make Dawn of War just a banger experience. So it was kind of cool to see that in action. So thank you all for watching. I do appreciate the clarification as well that was a mobile game where you could play as a knight, and it was kind of bad. It's kind of unfortunate. But thank you all for watching. I'll see you in the next one.